My wife accused me of cheating because of her best friend's lies. I lost my marriage, my friends, and my reputation. But when the liar got exposed, her life crumbled, and everyone who abandoned me went silent. I'm 35 years old. I live in Denver, and about 8 months ago I got divorced from who I thought would be the love of my life. But the truth is, it wasn't either of our faults. Or well, technically it was her fault for believing her best friend instead of me. But the reality is that all of this was orchestrated by an absolutely toxic and manipulative person who basically destroyed my marriage just because she was bored or jealous or who knows what. And the worst part is that for months, everyone thought I was the bad guy in the story, that I had been unfaithful, that I had destroyed everything. So I guess I need to tell this. I need to get it all out because finally, after all this time, the truth came to light, and it was so satisfying to see how everything crumbled for the person who did this to me. I met Megan like 7 years ago, at a friend's party, a mutual friend. She was beautiful, intelligent, worked in marketing, and we had so much in common. The first few weeks were incredible, you know? That stage where everything is perfect and you can't stop smiling like an idiot every time she sends you a message. But there was a problem. And that problem was named Amber. Amber was Megan's best friend since college, and from the first moment I met her, I knew she was going to be a headache. She was one of those people who needs to be the center of attention all the time, who dramatizes everything, who always has some problem or crisis that requires immediate attention. And Megan, well, Megan adored her, saw her as a sister, and I really tried to get along with her because I knew how important she was to my girlfriend. The first 2 years were manageable. Amber had a boyfriend at the time, a guy named Connor who seemed pretty normal, and that kept her busy. She was still dramatic and exhausting, but at least she wasn't constantly attached to us. Megan and I got engaged after 3 years together. I was happy. My family was happy. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. And then the wedding planning started, and that's when Amber started showing her true nature in a way I could no longer ignore. The thing is that Amber didn't just want to be the maid of honor, which was obvious and totally expected, but she also wanted to have her own special moment in the ceremony. Literally, she told us she wanted to walk down the aisle alone before Megan, like some kind of special entrance just for her. When I asked her why, she told me that because she was Megan's best friend and deserved recognition, and that also people should have the opportunity to see her well because she had been dieting and exercising specifically for the wedding. I'm not making this up. Those were her exact words. Obviously, I told her no, that it didn't make any sense. But Megan convinced me to let her do it, to keep the peace, that it wasn't worth fighting over something so small. So I gave in, although inside I knew I was setting a terrible precedent. Beautiful, I'm not gonna lie. Megan looked incredible. My family got along well with hers. Everything went as we had planned. Amber had her moment, walking alone down the aisle with a huge smile like it was her own wedding. And several guests asked me afterwards what was up with that, but well, it was already done. We went on our honeymoon to Greece, 2 absolutely perfect weeks without drama, without Amber, just the 2 of us. I should have known it wouldn't last. When we got back, Amber was basically living in our apartment. She had a key because Megan had given it to her years ago, and she would show up whenever she wanted, stay for hours, sometimes sleep over without warning. She started coming to dinner like 4 times a week, and when I tried to talk to Megan about it, she told me I was being selfish, that Amber was part of her life, and I had to accept it. And I accepted it, seriously. But there are limits. You know? You can't be newly married and have your wife's best friend practically living with you. Things got really unbearable like 6 months after the wedding, when Connor finally broke up with Amber. Apparently he had been unfaithful to her. Or that's what Amber said, although honestly I never knew if it was true or if it was another one of her dramas. The point is that Connor left her. She was devastated in a very dramatic and public way, and of course Megan invited her to stay with us while she found a new place. She told me. She didn't ask me. She just informed me that Amber was going to live with us temporarily. Those 4 weeks were absolute hell. Amber didn't contribute anything. No cleaning or groceries or rent, obviously. She would stay up until 3 in the morning watching Netflix in the living room with the volume high. She used all my food, my bathroom stuff. She even put on my favorite hoodie one day, and when I asked her to take it off, she started crying, saying I was insensitive to her situation. I tried to talk to Megan about it, but I always ended up being the bad guy, the insensitive husband who couldn't have compassion for a friend in crisis. But the truth is that Amber wasn't in crisis. She was enjoying the attention. She was enjoying having Megan completely available to her all the time. And I think part of her enjoyed the chaos she was causing in our marriage. After exactly 1 month, I exploded. I told Megan that Amber had to leave, that this wasn't sustainable, that we needed our space. Megan tried to defend her, but I was firm, and finally, she agreed to ask her to leave. Amber put on a huge show, crying and saying we were her only people, that she had nowhere to go. Lie. Her parents lived on the outskirts of Denver, but eventually she left. I thought things would improve after that we would finally have peace. I had no idea that the real nightmare was just beginning. Like 2 weeks of relative normalcy passed. Amber kept sending messages all the time. Megan kept seeing her regularly for lunch or coffee. But at least she wasn't in my house. And then one night, like 11 o'clock on a Wednesday, Megan came home and looked at me in a way I had never seen before. Her eyes were red from crying, and this expression of disgust and fury mixed. And before I could ask her what was wrong, she dropped on me. Amber, saw you. She saw you making out with another woman. I was completely frozen because I had no idea what she was talking about. I asked her what, when, where, how, and she told me that Amber had called her that afternoon crying, saying that she had gone to the Starbucks near my office and had seen me in the parking lot making out with a blonde woman next to a red car. That at first she thought she had seen wrong, but that she got closer to be sure, and it was definitely me, that she saw me clearly, and that the woman and I were very comfortable together, and obviously, it wasn't the first time. I swear I thought I was in a nightmare or something, because none of that had happened, literally nothing. I hadn't been to any Starbucks that week. I didn't know any blonde woman. I didn't have a red car near me. None of it made any sense. I tried to explain to her that Amber was lying, that this was obviously revenge for having kicked her out of the house, but Megan wouldn't listen to me. She asked me why her best friend, her trusted person for years, would make something like that up. What would she gain from it? And I had no answer for that, because honestly, I didn't understand Amber's mind. I didn't understand why someone would do something so cruel and destructive. I begged her to believe me. I told her we could check my phone, my computer, my bank movements, anything. But she just shook her head and cried, saying that Amber had no reason to lie, that Amber loved her and would never intentionally hurt her. That night I slept on the couch. The following days were brutal. Megan barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was with this cold and distant tone that destroyed me. I tried to contact Amber directly, send her messages asking why she was doing this, but she blocked me everywhere. I asked Megan to confront her, to ask her for proof, photos, something. But Amber supposedly refused, saying that seeing me had been so traumatic that she hadn't thought to take out her phone, that she just wanted to get out of there. Convenient, right? A week after the accusation, Megan left the house. There was no big conversation or anything. I just got home from work, and half of her stuff was already gone. She sent me a text message, a fucking text message, saying she was going to stay with a friend and that her lawyer would contact me soon to start the divorce proceedings. Divorce. We weren't even going to try couples therapy or talk to someone, just straight to divorce because her best friend said she saw me with someone else. The next 2 months were probably the worst of my life. Amber made sure all our mutual friends knew her version of the story. I was the unfaithful husband, the liar, the one who had cheated on his perfect best friend after less than a year of marriage. People I thought knew me, who knew what kind of person I was, looked at me differently. Some stopped responding to my messages, others sent me texts saying how disappointed they were. A couple we used to hang out with on weekends explicitly uninvited me from a party because Megan and Amber were going to be there, and they didn't want drama. I tried to defend myself. I tried to explain that it was all a lie, but without proof I just looked like a desperate liar. The divorce process moved fast because we had no children or big properties to divide, just the apartment we rented and some shared accounts. Megan didn't speak to me during the whole process. Everything was through lawyers. We signed the papers in April, like 8 months after the wedding. 8 months married, destroyed by the lie of a manipulative person who couldn't stand not being the center of Megan's universe. And then, literally 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a girl named Lindsay, who turned out to be Amber's friend, or rather ex-friend, because apparently they had had a huge fight. Lindsay asked me if we could meet, that she had important information she needed to share with me. Honestly, I thought it was another trap or something, but at that point, I had nothing to lose. So I agreed to meet her at a public cafe. But what Lindsay showed me that day basically validated everything I had been saying for months. She had screenshots, messages between her and Amber from like 6 months ago, where Amber literally admitted that she had made up the whole Starbucks story. In the messages, Amber told Lindsay how she was furious with me for kicking her out of my house, how Megan was starting to take my side more than hers, and how she needed to do something to regain attention and control. And then she explained, with sickening detail, how she had invented the Starbucks story, how she knew exactly what buttons to push with Megan, how she was sure Megan would believe her over me. There were messages where she laughed about how easy it was, where she said Megan was so naive and manipulable, where she basically celebrated having destroyed my marriage. I sat there reading those messages, feeling like a million emotions at the same time. Fury, obviously, but also this huge relief, because I finally had proof. I could finally prove I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't made anything up. I asked Lindsay why she was showing me this now, why not before? And she told me that at that time she and Amber were still friends, and Amber had made her swear she would never say anything. But recently they had had a horrible fight because Amber owed her money and refused to pay her, and Lindsay basically decided that was enough, that Amber was a terrible person and deserved to have her truth come to light. I asked Lindsay to send me all the screenshots, absolutely all of them, and she agreed. She also told me that if I needed her to testify or talk to someone, she would, that she felt terrible for not having said anything before. I left that cafe shaking, literally couldn't even hold my phone properly. The first thing I did was send Megan a message saying we needed to talk urgently, that I had information that changed everything. She responded like 3 hours later saying we had nothing to talk about, but when I told her I had proof that Amber had lied about everything, she agreed to see me. We met 2 days later in a public park, neutral ground. Megan looked terrible. Honestly, like she hadn't slept well in months. And I guess I didn't look much better either. I showed her the messages, all of them, without saying anything. I just gave her my phone and let her read. I watched her go through all the stages: confusion, disbelief, shock, horror, and finally absolute devastation. She sat there with my phone in her hands, reading and rereading the messages, and started crying, like full sobs that shook her. She kept saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, what did I do? I can't believe I believed her. I can't believe I destroyed everything." Part of me wanted to comfort her, because for years this had been my person, the person I comforted when she was sad. But another part of me, the part that had spent months being called a liar and unfaithful, the part that had lost friends and dignity and a marriage, that part was furious. I told her that I had tried to tell her the truth, that I had begged her to listen to me, that I had offered her any kind of proof she needed, but that she had chosen to believe Amber over me, her husband. She asked me if we could fix this, if there could be some way to try again, that she would do whatever was necessary, that she would go to therapy, that she would apologize publicly, anything. And I told her no. I told her that the problem wasn't just that she had falsely accused me, but that she had shown that she fundamentally didn't trust me, that Amber's word was worth more than mine, that our relationship didn't have the necessary foundation to survive something like this. I told her that I had spent the last months rebuilding myself, learning to be alone, and that I couldn't anymore, and honestly didn't want to anymore, go back to something that had been broken so completely. She cried more, begged me more, but I was firm. The only thing I asked of her was that she share the truth with everyone who had heard Amber's lies, and she agreed. The following days were satisfying in a way I probably shouldn't admit, but can't help feeling. Megan shared the screenshots with our entire social circle, explained that it had all been an elaborate lie, that Amber had manipulated her and defamed me. The apologies started coming in, messages from people who had abandoned me saying how sorry they were, that they had no idea, that they should never have doubted me. Some tried to justify themselves saying that Amber's story was very convincing, but honestly, those apologies sounded hollow. If they really knew me, if they really trusted me, they would have at least listened to my version. The social backlash against Amber was brutal and fast. She was basically excommunicated from our entire friend group. People who used to tolerate her because she was Megan's best friend now saw her for what she really was, a manipulative liar who had destroyed a marriage for fun or revenge or whatever motivated her psychotic behavior. She started posting on social media playing the victim, saying that people were only listening to one side of the story, that there was more at stake than everyone knew, but no one believed her anymore. She had burned too many bridges, had lied too many times. Megan told me later, in one of the last messages we exchanged, that Amber had denied everything at first. That when she confronted her with the messages, Amber tried to say they were fake, that Lindsay had fabricated them because she hated her. But Megan recognized Amber's writing style, the expressions she used, and besides Lindsay had more proof, other messages that corroborated the entire timeline. Eventually, Amber stopped denying and just left, blocked Megan everywhere, and basically disappeared from her life after more than 10 years of friendship. From what I learned later through mutual friends, things got worse for Amber. She lost her job because apparently the drama reached her office. Someone told her boss what she had done, and the company decided they didn't want that kind of person representing them. I don't know exactly how that happened, but honestly, I'm not surprised. The kind of person who destroys a marriage with lies probably has no problem creating drama at work either. I saw her once from a distance like 3 months after everything came to light. She looked haggard and angry, and when our eyes met for a second, she just gave me this look of pure hatred before turning and walking in the opposite direction. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little bit. What did surprise me was finding out that Megan tried to reach out to Amber months after all the drama, like in an attempt to understand why she had done what she did, or maybe looking for some kind of closure. Michelle, a mutual friend, who still talked to me from time to time, told me that Megan sent Amber a long letter explaining how much damage she had done, not just to me but to her too, and asking for some kind of explanation or apology. Amber's response was basically to tell her she was an idiot for believing that someone like me would really love her, that I had probably been cheating on her anyway, and there just wasn't proof, and that if Megan wanted to continue being a loser for the rest of her life, that was her problem, but not to contact her ever again. That finally closed any possibility of them maintaining any kind of relationship. Megan ended up moving back in with her parents on the outskirts of Denver, from what I heard. Her mom was apparently furious with her for having destroyed her marriage over a friend's lies, and Megan had to carry that disappointment on top of everything else. We haven't talked in months now, and honestly, I have no interest in doing so. I know there are probably people who think I should have given her another chance, that she was also a victim of Amber in a way, and maybe they're right, but I couldn't. Trust is everything in a marriage, and she showed that she didn't have that trust in me when I needed it most. Now I'm focused on rebuilding my life. I got a better job like 2 months ago, moved to a new apartment in a better part of town, started exercising regularly. I've gone on a couple of dates but nothing serious yet, and that's okay. I'm not in a hurry. What I value most now is peace. Not having constant drama, not having to deal with toxic personalities that drain your energy and destroy your life for sport. I lost a marriage, but gained clarity about what kind of people I want in my life and what boundaries I need to establish. The truth came to light, finally, and although it didn't change the final outcome, although Megan and I are still divorced, at least my name was cleared. People know I wasn't unfaithful, that I didn't lie, that it was all a cruel fabrication by someone who couldn't handle not being the center of attention. And Amber, well, Amber is living the consequences of her actions, without friends, without a job, without the person who had supported her the most for years. I guess there's some poetic justice in that, although part of me wishes all of this had never happened in the first place.